David. There we go.
Welcome, everybody. It's wonderful to see all of you. And thank you all so much for coming tonight and spending your evening with us. We hope that you will also come to see our book review, January 13th, The Third Daughter, which will be given by Dr. Susanna Pulaski. And we will tell you exactly how that's going to be. It could be virtual, it could be in person, but we'll let you know about that, and certainly register for it. It's going to be a great book review. So tonight we're going to talk about Florence Adler Swims Forever, which I thought was a great book. Did everybody think so too? Well, it takes place in Atlantic City, which is one of my favorite places. And the story has so many things to it. I think we'll get started by talking about, I'll detail the story to you. Beanland's novel is divided into approximately 20 chapters, with each chapter describing a different character's point of view. The catalyst of the novel is introduced in the very first chapter, Florence's death. The rest of the novel revolves around the various tensions between members and friends of the Adler family, with their main concern being how to hide the news of Florence's death from her pregnant sister, Fannie. Florence is a swimmer, and in the summer of 1934, she's getting ready to swim the English Channel with the help of her coach, Stuart, who was also a lifeguard. Florence is staying with her parents, niece, and family friend, Anna. Anna has recently arrived from Germany and is hoping to secure a visa for her parents to come over. One day, while at the beach, Florence drowns and dies. Her niece, Gussie, witnesses the whole incident. Florence's family mourn her death according to Jewish rites and traditions. They gradually welcome Stuart into their family, who bonds with Anna. And now I think I'd like you to see some pictures from Atlantic City so we can get background and we can see exactly where everything is happening. So here's old. Well, listen to the song.
In Atlantic City, we will walk in a dream. On the boardwalk in Atlantic City, life will be peaches and cream.
So you see in the background, this is the pier that goes all the way out where she goes swimming and swims around it. That's the beach right here where they're all sitting.
Right into your arms, Cinderella, you will find your fella.
Here's the lifeguard boat that goes out to get her.
Atlantic City, down on the old New Jersey shore.
And the lifeguard stands right there. Just to put it all in perspective, and this is all before the casinos, and these are all the hotels. Here you have Mammy's restaurant. This all goes out to steeplechase where all the amusements are.
There on a rolling chair, he'll roll right into your arms. In romantic, enchanted Atlantic City, down on the old New Jersey shore.
So that's the background, and Fannie, the sister Fannie, is bedridden in the hospital. She lost her last baby and is determined that this one should survive. The whole family and hospital staff agree to pretend that Florence is still alive. For the sake of Fannie's health, they thought that by telling her that she may miscarriage again, that was a thought at that time. So it wasn't very, it wasn't unusual to do that. Fanny's husband Isaac is mostly absent and very irresponsible. He's too busy trying to earn money off a shady real estate scheme to take much notice of his wife or daughter. Florence's parents, Esther and Joseph, experienced marital problems as well. Joseph was engaged to Anna's mother, Inez, that's the girl he brought over, causing great jealousy on Esther's behalf. Stuart is not exempt from his own family troubles. His father is the wealthy owner of a large hotel called the Covington, and Stuart wants nothing to do with the hotel on account of its racist and anti-Semitic policies. He does his best to dodge his father's various attempts to get him into the business. So now let's hear what the author has to say about her personal feelings and how she got to write the book and talk about Gussie.
Gussie, this character who you have just gotten to know for the tiniest smidge of time, is actually based on my grandmother. When my grandmother was a little girl, she was on the beach in Atlantic City, which is where she lived, and she witnessed her aunt's body be brought back up onto the beach. You know, she was a champion swimmer and she was training to swim the English Channel. And she drowned off States Avenue in Atlantic City in the year 1929. That summer, my grandmother really was staying with her grandmother. And the reason for that was because her mother was in the hospital on bed rest. She had lost a baby the previous summer and they didn't want to risk, any complications. And so, the family and really this decision was spearheaded by the matriarch, my great grandmother. Her name's Esther in the book. And we'll just stick with character names for the purposes of this discussion because it gets super confusing. But Esther made this decision to, to keep Florence's death a secret, to not tell my great grandmother who was in the hospital. And the whole family, kind of went in on this secret.
It's not working.
When I was growing up, I always knew that I had someone in the family who had drowned. I knew that. My mother was always very careful around the water. There were 4 of us kids. We had to wait an hour after we ate at lunch, before we could get back in the pool. And, I would frequently hear this story as kind of a warning. And it wasn't until I got older, though, that I realized that the women in my family were really, the reason they retold the story as often as they did was not just that this person, Florence Lowenthal, had drowned, but really what they were so interested in all those years later was the fact that they believed Esther must have been such a strong woman to be able to walk into this hospital room and act like everything was fine. What kind of strength they thought that must have taken, to be able to do that. And so I always heard that. And as I got older, I kind of thought about it more and more, like, okay, we kind of had really put her decision on a pedestal. And I can remember questioning it, in my teens and 20s, like thinking, well, would I have done the same thing? Or was that the right thing to do, to make a decision to keep such a big secret? I mean, the women in my family kind of universally believed it was the right thing to do. But I began to see, as I grew into an adult, the ways that we were kind of using the story to justify keeping secrets in the family still. And, particularly keeping things from my grandparents, like things we didn't want them to have to worry about. And so as I got older, I was in my 30s, I wanted to write a novel. And this was the story that kind of wouldn't leave me alone. I thought it was such a compelling story. And I just thought there was so much moral ambiguity to it because it wasn't clear to me that Esther had made the right decision. And I wanted the chance to explore it.
So there were many secrets in the story. And Joseph, who was the grandfather, the story starts with really the grandparents when Joseph and Esther had problems with their marriage. And the problem was that Joseph, when he brought Anna over, Esther, his wife, was very jealous. She thought something is wrong. He's putting so much time and effort into this thing. She wanted to know more about it. So what happened was she found out that Joseph was a boyfriend really of this Anna, the girl that he had brought over, and he was the boyfriend to her mother. And they were children in Hungary, and they grew up together. And Joseph's brother sent him a ticket to come to America, and he left her there. And she said, let's get married. This is Anna's mother, said to Joseph, she wanted to get married. And he said, no, he had to come to America. He only had one ticket, and he would make enough money to eventually send for her. Well, what happened was he was in America for a couple of years, and he worked at a hotel in Atlantic City, and he met he met Esther, and he fell in love with her. And he did write back and say that he had met somebody that he really loved and that he had been here for 3 years and things had changed. And so, but he never said anything to Esther about it. He never talked about what happened or about this woman. And so she was really upset because he didn't tell her this. And it was really after 29 years of marriage that it finally came out. And so that was one story where there were secrets that were being held. And then, of course, the other one was the big thing with nobody was supposed to know anything about daughter Fannie, who really was that poor girl. She didn't have any idea of what was going on. And before it all happened, she had an argument with her sister Florence. She wanted Florence to stay in Atlantic City, or not to cancel her swim around the English Channel, but she wanted her to postpone it until the baby was born. And of course, Florence said no. She had all the preparation to go, and she was going to go to France, whether the baby was born or not. So the sisters had a little kind of an argument over it. And then Fannie, who was in the hospital, really felt guilty about that. And she wanted to send a note to her sister to say, look, I forgive you. I understand everything. And, she couldn't do that. Her sister died. So all this was going on in the family, and little Gussie was certainly stayed with her grandparents while her mother was in the hospital, because her father was really too irresponsible to take care of her. And the grandmother insisted that the child stay with them over the summer. So they had pretty many people who had pretty many problems that were kind of all together at one place. And then, that Stuart was a wonderful guy, wonderful fellow who was a lifeguard and was the coach for Florence. And he actually was very instrumental in getting her to schedule this swim around to the English Channel, and he coached her at her swim club, and he really had romantic feelings for her. But her main thing was, she didn't want any of that, and she just wanted to swim around the channel. So, but they were very, very good friends, and he was devastated when she drowned. And but he started to bond with Anna. Anna said that she wanted to learn how to swim, and she didn't even have a bathing suit, but she took one of Florence's bathing suits and Stuart started to teach her how to swim. And they went to her father's hotel and they went to the pool, and that's where she would go every day and meet him after work. And a romance was cultivated from that. And she needed money to bring her parents over. They were denied the visas every time they applied for a visa. They were denied, and no matter how much money they gave them, it was never enough. So when this romance started with Stuart and with Anna, uh, Anna was told that the easiest way to do this, the easiest way for her to get a visa for her parents was to become an American citizen and to marry an American. And she was talking to Stuart one day and she told him that. And I guess he got kind of upset that was she using him just for this purpose or what? And she really wasn't. I mean, she had feelings for him, but she also was very, um, she was dedicated to getting her parents visas because things were starting to be so terrible that she couldn't get into college. And that's why she had come to America too. She couldn't, Jews were not being able to work. They weren't being admitted to college. And if they were in college, they were expelled. So that's why things were getting bad. And she really wanted her parents over here. So she and Stuart kind of drifted for a while, but finally they got together. But that takes that comes a little bit later. His father was very upset with him because Stuart didn't really want to work for his father because he didn't like his policies of being anti-Semitic. Jews were not welcome in his hotel. So Stuart didn't want to have anything to do with it. But as time went on, things happened later on where he decided that he was going to help Anna. And he went to his father and asked him for money and didn't tell him why, didn't tell him what he needed the money for, but he did say he wanted to work in the hotel. He wanted to learn the business, and it was his grandfather's business, and he wanted to carry it on, and he wanted to learn all about it. So that worked out very well. But let's listen to what she has to say, Rachel Beanland, about the characters in the book.
I didn't start writing until the fall of 2016.
And you knew you wanted 7, or you knew who the 7 were?
I kind of knew who they were at that point. I knew I had this core family, that had to be there. I knew that with Fannie in bed, and with a daughter who was 6, or what in the book she's 7, she would likely be married. So, I knew there was going to be a husband for her. In real life, my great-great-grandmother, Esther in the book, her husband, who of course is Joseph in this book, actually predeceased Florence. He had died the year before she died. And so I did want to give her a husband. I knew that pretty early on because I felt like there was really interesting tension in looking at a couple who had lost a child and, how they grieve and if they had different opinions about what they were doing or, I just thought there was a lot of rich, material there. So that took care of, Joseph, Esther, Isaac, Fannie, and Gussie. That was like the core family. And then I was very interested in bringing Anna in. Anna was very useful to me for a few reasons. One, she was like a fly on the wall in this family. She was living with them, which is so awkward. I mean, can you even imagine you're a house guest when a family loses a child who's very close in age to you, and you're just kind of along for this ride and unable to leave? Like, so I liked the fact that she was not related to the family, but able to look in on them. And, you know, it's always nice to kind of have an outsider's perspective. Families are weird. Yeah, every family is weird, right? And so that was helpful for me to have a character who was living amongst them, but able to kind of make her own observations about what they were doing, and, you know, whether it was right or wrong, or whatever the case may be. And then, but of course, Anna is Jewish. And so there are some things that she kind of maybe doesn't question as much because culturally it seems appropriate to her, or whatever. And so I did always want to have one character who was not Jewish. You know, I was raised in an interfaith marriage. You know, my dad was not Jewish. And then, you know, I'm married to a Catholic guy, or, you know, he was raised Catholic. He's pretty non-practicing at this point, but we're raising Jewish kids. So I'm attracted to, you know, interfaith dynamics in general. But I just felt like it was useful because I didn't think I was writing a book. It's honestly surprised me. Like, so much of my audience for this book is, of course, people who are Jewish. But at the time, I wasn't really thinking about that. So I thought, well, it would be nice to have a character who is not Jewish, who, you know, for readers who are not Jewish, there's someone who kind of can steer them through some of these, you know, traditions and rituals. I mean, Stuart is going to ask all the same questions and not understand the same things that, you know, that many other people may not understand. So that, and I always, Stuart was also a great character to bring in the Florence's background in swimming. Like, I wanted that swimming component to be there. And, you know, the swimming wasn't something her parents understood as well, even though her father, of course, supported it. And so Stuart, you know, as a coach and a lifeguard, and a friend, you know, was able to bring that in.
So we come back to Stuart and Anna, who have become this pair, and they also, Anna does a lot of, is very, very helpful in the house. She, even though she is not really being treated very nicely, she just is a wonderful, caring person. And she takes care of the little Gussie all the time. She's with her all the time, takes care of her. And Gussie really clings on to Stuart because he shows her a lot of attention, and she thinks he's wonderful. She wants to marry him. And she too is not, you know, she's not too crazy about Anna either, because Anna doesn't speak English very well. She does speak English and you can understand her, but she speaks very slowly. And Gussie really just didn't have the patience to wait for Anna to speak. But Anna takes really good care of her and is very helpful to Esther, especially when Esther wants to visit her daughter in the hospital, and whatever she wants to do, she always knew that Anna was there to take care of Gussie. So unfortunately, Gussie's father was not a very, as we spoke before, was not a very caring father or husband. And he did a lot of very shady things. And he had this Florida thing that had fallen through, and some kind of a shady real estate deal in Florida. And he was trying to get money for it. Well, long story short, he had stolen money from Joseph, who gave him a nice job. And he really had everything he could have wanted. He had a lovely family. He had a job, and they really made a mensch out of him, or they could have. But he just went the other way. Anytime there was anything shady or anything not right, he was right there. And I hardly went to visit his wife in the hospital. So Joseph really got tired of it, especially when he found out that his son-in-law was stealing from him. And he confronts Isaac, and he tells him that, well, he offered him money to really let him go and to get rid of him. And he really, not telling his daughter, but there were so many things that went on, and he didn't see any end to it. As far as he was concerned, this was going to be a terrible marriage. This girl was going to be in this awful marriage for the rest of her life if he didn't step in and do something. So he confronted his son-in-law and offered him a lot of money and told him that he would go. He should just go, and he was going to give him money every month and a lump sum of money to take with him. And Isaac just, that he just accepted the offer and he was going. So without even thinking about the wife and the children and that was beside the point. He was going to go to Florida. And Joseph takes him to the train and puts him on the train to make sure that he gets on the train to go away. And then there's a contract and this, that, and the other. And little Gussie, she doesn't know anything. It's her father, whether he pays attention to her or he doesn't. And she decides that she's going to go to the train station and try to get on the train to go to see her father, who's in Florida, because the father left the day before. So in the middle of all this, Stuart and Anna had this little kind of argument or Stuart got very upset because he didn't know whether or not she really had feelings for him or whether she was using him for a visa or what the story was. And then when he thought about it and he cooled down, his love for her was certainly there. And he really wanted to get back to her. And what happened was, since little Gussie ran away, Anna was absolutely so upset. She couldn't find Gussie, and she called all over and said, "Where is she?" Nobody knew where she was. And Anna went running all over the place looking for her. She went to Stuart. She went everywhere looking. And when Stuart heard about it, he joined Anna in this search. And they went all over every place they could possibly think. And then they went to the train station. And sure enough, there was Gussie sitting at the end of the train station waiting for the next train to come. But she said it was too complicated. She didn't have enough money and she just didn't know which train to take. So, of course, there was a big reunion, and her mother had gone into labor at this time, and they all went to the hospital, and they were waiting for the child to be born, the baby to be born. And at this point, Stuart and Anna he said he wanted to talk to her, and they got together, and then Stuart got the money from his father, and the father didn't even know what the money was for because Stuart wouldn't tell him. And Stuart went right to the bank and put it into an account for money. It was something like $12,000 for money for Anna's parents for the visa. And they wind up as a couple, and Anna was supposed to go to Trenton State College. And she decided, no, she wasn't going to do that. She was going to stay with Stuart and she was going to work with him in the hotel. The father was very happy about it. He gave the money very generously and very easily because he wanted his son to be in that business. So that ended up very well. Unfortunately, Fannie, well, maybe fortunately, she had no idea what was going on with Isaac. She was in labor. They tried to get hold of Isaac. They called in all hours of the night he wasn't around. They just couldn't find him. Finally, he came and, acted like nothing had ever happened. Nobody knew where he was. And that's when his father-in-law really got upset with him. So, he said, he just couldn't see his daughter living like that and just not being anything really. And Fannie had made quite a few remarks about Isaac, talking about him not being around, not being responsible. She said she held her breath for 8 years because there was nothing that she could do that was right. So we don't know at the end. We're not told what the story is. We don't know if she, how she took this. But from the remarks, if you remember the remarks in the book that she has made about him and his infrequent visits to her in the hospital, I think she probably wasn't, she may have been relieved. We don't know. We just don't know at the end. But anyhow, her father did try his best. And as he said to Stuart, too, he took Stuart when Florence was supposed to go to France. He took Stuart on a trip to the ferry where the ship was leaving. And he just wanted to see the ship. And he said to Stuart, he was telling Stuart about everything you do for your children. There's nothing too much that you would do for your children, is basically, I'm sort of saying what he meant to say. And he said that he was so happy, that he was very sorry about the fact that they could not really grieve and mourn for his daughter. But he said he hoped that the people that would have done it, once they find out, will do it later on. So does anybody have any comments or any kind of remarks you'd like to say or talk about the book?
Well, did they ever tell Florence? Did they ever tell Fannie? Because I don't think that was in the book either.
No, that was not in the book. They did not tell Fannie. They kind of left it up to you what you should, what you thought the end would be. And she's writing another book. I thought it was a sequel because people had told me they felt very unfulfilled at the end because they just didn't know what was going on. But this next book is not a sequel. It has nothing to do with the first book. So
I wanted to say that I thought Isaac was very, I wanted to say that I thought Isaac was very wrong. I mean, of course, Isaac was, but Joseph, to make the decision he did for his daughter, when they already were going to have to say that she'd lost her sister and she comes home and her husband's gone. The decision should be, as far as I'm concerned, between the husband and wife. And I think Joseph did a terrible thing to Fannie. I think for her to know they've kept this secret and then to come home with a new baby and a daughter that loved her father, I thought it was horrible. So that was just my opinion.
Also Gussie too,
And Gussie, yes, absolutely. I mean, especially showing that she went to the station after her father. I mean, these are decisions that, people have problems in their marriage, but it's up to them to decide. And I think Isaac was torn between doing it and not doing it and gave in. I had really thought the book was going to end with Isaac coming back. I was shocked that it was left that way, but that's me,
Yeah, well, he didn't have much of, he didn't think about it too long. Once he was offered the money, he was out of there.
That's right. My mother would call me up. Oh, by the way, your Uncle Jaime died 3 weeks ago. Oh, by the way, your Aunt Grace died. Oh, by the way, your uncle or cousin or whatever. They didn't tell me anything because they wanted to protect me. And I think that's kind of what the mother was like, overprotecting her daughter.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Walk in the door? Oh, by the way, your sister's dead.
Yeah, that I felt really badly for her because being in the hospital, she had no idea what was going on. Then they said her blood pressure went up real high. Well, sure. I mean, the husband didn't come. She missed her daughter. Her
Her
sister
sister
didn't
didn't
come.
visit, right?
Yeah, she had all these things. No wonder her blood pressure went up. I mean, she was constantly in turmoil, and she couldn't imagine a lot of things. Why don't I have a radio? Why don't I have a newspaper? They really went to extremes to keep it from her. But and families, there are things that happen like that, I guess, that people really hold on to a secret.
And really, her sister, not getting letters from her sister or communication, thinking her sister had blown her off. To me, that was more damaging than had she known what happened.
Yeah.
That was very damaging.
It would have been interesting to know what happened when she did find out. What were her feelings when she found out about everything?
Well, it was interesting that the mother said to the father, Anna has to go, but then she never left. She never insisted. I don't know. Then it went into another. It was not complete.
Yeah, she was not nice to her, but she did realize at the end they became friendly. At the end, she realized that she could not have done what she did all summer without Anna there, and they had this discussion about. She also resented the fact that Anna was also got into a relationship with Stuart. She felt like that was kind of a betrayal, but it really wasn't. Florence didn't have any romantic interest in him. And when they spoke about it, when she sat down with Esther and they spoke about it, she said that Stuart was in love with Florence, but she said Florence didn't want any part of it. And she told the mother, she said to her, so she said, well, what did she want? And Anna said she wanted to swim forever. She just
also, there was a spot in there when Anna and Florence were in bed together.
Right, exactly.
It kind of led you to believe that Florence could be gay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, she didn't elaborate on that. She just wrote that one paragraph and
right
that's the end of that.
I think had we known that it was true in the beginning, it would have been a different read. But when I finally read, oh my God, it was really true. That was really something.
Right.
Made it even better as a book to me.
Yeah.
But the secrets, we have such secrets. I don't know if it's a Jewish thing or everybody, but families have unbelievable secrets.
Yeah. The more I would talk to people, more people would say, yeah, well, we had that in our family. This happened or that happened, and nobody was supposed to know about it.
Now people are much more open.
Yeah, now everything. I mean, things are so much more open, and we don't.
It's healthier.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know.
Diane, my sister and I often joke about.
But anyhow, it was a good read.
Someone wanted to say something. Someone wanted to say something.
Diane, it's Joyce. My sister and I always joke about nobody told us anything when we were growing up. And it's the truth, No, we never knew if anybody was sick. We never knew what was going on with anything. And it is the truth. That was the way things were handled. That was life. I think it's a Jewish thing.
I don't know. I'm going to find out about that. That's interesting to find out.
I don't think it's a Jewish thing at all. Everybody I know talks about the family, especially the years ago, people did not talk about it. My sister was a half sister and I didn't know it until I was 12. I never knew my mother had been married before. Didn't know my father wasn't my sister's father. 12 years old. Nowadays it's talked about from day one.
Yeah.
It just, my mother had been divorced. Oh my God. You just did not mention that. But I don't think that's a Jewish thing. I think that is a generational thing. I think
that's what I was going to say. It's definitely generational.
Yeah.
Let's hear what she has to say about keeping secrets.
keeping secrets and its impact on families and how you think about what you tell and what you don't tell. And I'm wondering whether through, you talked about how you chose the story in part because you'd always struggled with the kind of ambivalence of this decision. Did you come out, did writing your way through it bring you to a different place? And, did you have a different perspective on Esther's decision?
It's funny.
Writing it?
I set out to write the book, and I really thought I was going to use this novel to prove my mother wrong. This is what every mother loves. I've got 3 kids and I can't wait till they start writing books. So no, I set out to write the book and thought I'm going to do this. I'm going to explore this thoroughly. I'm going to show my mom that the secret keeping is crazy, and really by the time I get to the end, I'm gonna have figured all this out. And of course, hilarious thing is that what novel writing does, and it's the same thing that reading novels does, is it lets you walk in other people's shoes. It allows you to kind of experience the lives of people that you might never have encountered. And that was completely true in the case of me writing this book about my great-great-grandmother, a woman I've never met. By the time I had written Esther's story, and I don't want to give too much away, but by the time I had written her story, I had a lot of sympathy for her. She was a woman who was grieving deeply. It was a different time. They knew much less about medical conditions and what would or wouldn't bring on maybe an early birth, early baby. And I had a lot of sympathy for her. I don't know that I don't know what I would do if I were ever in this situation, and knock on wood, I never am. I don't know that I've gone as far, as my mother and, her siblings, or my grandmother, certainly, who believed absolutely she made the right decision. But I certainly have a lot more sympathy for her. There was a line in the book, this is not giving anything away, but if you have read the book, when Joseph goes to Highlands and is talking to Stuart, they're watching a boat go out, and Joseph is kind of justifying the decision to keep the secret, why he went along with it. And he says, new life is the most important thing. And that line was verbatim a line I took from a conversation I had with my grandmother. And I just, I wanted to give it to Joseph.
So the line was about doing she talks about Joseph says to why didn't his father come to America, get a good job, because he could certainly, he said, have made more money than his sons could. So why didn't he come to America, get a job, and then send for his sons? And instead of sending the older son, and then the older son sent for Joseph, and the parents, they'll never see the parents again. They weren't going to come to America. And he said, it's for your children. You do all you can for your children. That's what his theory was all the time. And, they were in control in those days too, in that generation too. I think the parents had much more control over what was going on, even with a married couple, and especially if the son-in-law was working for him. So I think that's where that all came in about really breaking up that couple. But anybody else have anything else they want to say?
I just think it's wonderful that you had the author on. It really helped on understanding having her.
Yeah, she clears up a lot of the questions that we have by telling us what she did. Yeah.
Well, it's funny listening to it. I suddenly thought of a secret in my family that the maid, when she was 4 years old, 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 she was 4 years old that worked for my grandmother and my mother from the time she was a teenager, was the one who told me that my father's real mother died at 24 and that my grandmother was his stepmother. And it was the maid that told me. Any secrets that I found out in the family always came from the maid. And I forgot that for years until we started talking about it. It's really funny. And I do think it's a generational thing. And I also think it's a Jewish thing. I really do.
I don't know. I'll have to find out about that. But you know, Gussie too. Gussie is a little girl. She was a very smart little girl, very precocious too. She really had, the only way she found out about anything was she didn't know her mother was pregnant until she went to a store with her. She went to buy stockings. And I guess she was talking to the woman. And so she heard that her mother was going to have a baby. And then she thought she came home and she heard her grandfather say to her mother that, she said, take it easy. The father was trying to, Joseph was telling his daughter, take it easy. Don't work too hard. Don't do this. Don't do that. And because they were afraid of her having another miscarriage. But the only way she heard that was because she overheard Joseph. And then she heard her mother tell Esther, her mother, that she had to be in the hospital because that's what the doctor had prescribed. But that the kid would have had no idea what was going on if she wasn't such a smart little girl and was paid attention. So, nobody told her. Said, you go to your grandmother's and that's it. And she didn't want to go with her to stay at her grandmother. She wanted to stay home with her father. But her father said, no, what are we going to do? Knock around together? No, it's not a plan. And of course, the grandmother said that wasn't even in the picture. She wasn't not going to let that child stay under his care. So secrets, secrets, and they will continue for a long time. There's so many things we don't know.
Okay, I wanted to say something about Gussie.
Mm-hmm.
When she went to the station to look for her father, okay, when Anna found her, she slapped her.
No, not then. It wasn't then. It was when Gussie ran off.
Right. Anyway, it was the first time, it was at the pier during the pageant, right, the big swim. It was the first time that Gussie had ever been struck. But she was a coddle child. The woman had lost another baby. And so everything revolved around Gussie, okay? Then Anna gives her a big hug and holds her. And I think that those are two emotions that Gussie had never experienced. She'd never been chastised like that. And she'd never been hugged and had that physical love expressed to her. I think Esther was one of these women that kind of held back. She was not big gestury. She was a strong woman, but to her, part of that strength was not showing your emotions. Always everything was fine. It was fine. She could go see Fannie. She could act like everything was okay. She could do this, okay? So she was not one of these women who had it showed a lot of emotion. And I don't think Fannie was either. So here comes Anna with these big hugs after she had told her how important it was that she never, ever run off like that again. And I think that was quite a lesson for little Gussie to have that much emotion, the anger, the fear, the love, all expressed all in, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good scene. And you're right, it was after the pageant. And of course, Anna knows that Florence, and Gussie knows it too, but she's young, had drowned there. And so in that same water. So for Anna to be gone, Gussie to be gone when people are out there swimming, it was really very scary to Anna beyond not finding her, at the station. But I thought that was a well-written scene. It was very emotional for Gussie. Very instructive. That's it.
I don't think Esther was an overly affectionate person. She was with Joseph, but As far as the girls, maybe that's a generational thing too. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Anybody else got anything they want to contribute to this?
I thought it was interesting that the father did mention that at one point in the story that he thought that the daughter, Fanny, could work for him, that he thought that she was a lot smarter than she thought that she was. And I think he envisioned a future for her in a way that perhaps she had never envisioned for herself. And I think that that was also part of why he got rid of the Isaac.
Yeah. He didn't think she would, she wasn't doing anything. She wasn't.
Right.
And he saw a future in her. She had worked for him before, so.
And she never went on to college. I think she had dropped out, and she was very bright. And so, although I don't think she thought she was. And so that's another whole thing that I don't know whether it truly happened in real life or whether this was something that the author kind of made up.
It probably it was a novel.
But in 1929, women didn't go to college. I don't know if men went to college.
Well, it certainly did happen a lot that very bright women did not go to college.
Of course.
She
Secretarial
went to secretarial school.
Right.
And then she met him. She met Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it, and he saw, oh boy, the boss's daughter, it looked good. So that's what, I don't think the father was really, I think he was astute to do what he did, really. He just didn't see any future. He saw everything just going downhill all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he just didn't want his daughter to drown in that. Who knows? A mindset, who knows? But anyhow, ladies, it was really wonderful to be together with you tonight, even though it was just virtual. And we look forward to you coming again in January. And that's another very good book. That's about, what do you call it? The slave trading. And this is a true story from beginning to end. It takes place in Argentina. If you haven't read it, The Third Daughter, it's a wonderful book. I think you'll like it. I mean, there's parts of it that are a little rough to read, but the book is really wonderful. And I know that Susanna, who comes from Argentina, is going to do a wonderful job. She's very good. So thank you all for being here. Have a happy Thanksgiving and a happy Hanukkah and a new year. We'll see you in January. Be well, everybody. Take care. And thank you.